Hello, this is Professor Kinney, and today we are looking at positing photographic images in Adobe Photoshop CS4. To begin, before we've opened our images, we've gone through a fairly rigorous selection criteria. The adage garbage in equals garbage out certainly holds when you're working with compositing images in Photoshop. So it's important to acquire appropriate assets before starting out. This is particularly relevant in the internet age when it's so easy to procure images off the internet. You have to discern what constitutes a good image over a bad image. Now, we've already gone through the selection procedure ahead of time, and now we want to bring these images into Photoshop and then composite them using a technique called layer masking. You'll notice the Photoshop environment very similar to InDesign and Adobe Illustrator, members of the CS4 suite. We have a dashboard here at the top, which is context sensitive. We have a toolbar here over on the left, and we have various palettes here on the right that we can access. And so we're going to be looking at a few different tools and palettes and techniques associated with compositing images. Now, first of all, we need to open up the files. So I'll just go to the desktop now, and these are the two files that we've chosen, and I'm just going to drag them directly onto the Photoshop icon. Photoshop will then open them up. In Photoshop CS4, it uses a tabbed approach where your different files can be accessed by clicking on a tab found at the top of the image window. Now, if you feel that it's more intuitive to work with separate windows, simply tear the tab off. I find this is more intuitive. It helps you to make a distinction between two separate files. In order to combine these two files, first of all, it's important to ensure that they have the same color space. And if you go to Image Mode, it tells you that this is an 8-bit red, green, blue color image. Likewise, Image Mode, it's an 8-bit RGB. They're both in the same color space. This can also be ascertained up here, RGB/8. And the final thing is that they're the same image format, and both are actually JPEG images, as indicated in the title bar. In order to combine these two images, I'm going to drag the female image on top of the male image. And to do so, I'm going to use this tool right here, the Move tool. So I select that, I drag it over, and you notice instantly that there's a massive increase in the size of the female image. The reason for that was that if we looked at the dimension, if we go to Image, Image Size, you can see that this dimension was 900 pixels by 1445. They were packed together at a density of 300 pixels to the inch. Now, if we take 900 pixels and we pack them 300 to the inch, 900 divided by 300 should give us, and that's very interesting, it's showing a width of 7.62. I would think if we divided 900 by 300, we would get a factor of 3. I'm sorry, it's quoting centimeters. That's why. Let's make it all the same units. There, now it's making sense. Notice this is the image density. That's how tightly packed together the image pixels or picture elements are. We're packing 300 of them into a linear inch. If we have 900 of them in our width, we take 900, divide by 300. That means we've got enough pixels to cover 3 printable inches at that image density. What's important to note is the image density and the total number of pixels, which is 3.72 million. Notice image size. This one is considerably larger, 6 times larger almost. Look at the width and the height here. They're only packed in at 180 to the inch. which means this thing is 17 by 11. See what would happen if I pack them in tighter. Sorry, I've got to say resample image, image size, and choose, I'm going to change that to, I'm going to switch off resample and type 300. And you will notice that this image is 5 by 7, or roughly 5 by 8. The total number of pixels remains the same. All we're doing is packing them closer together. And by packing them closer together, the printable size of that image gets much smaller. So even though I've made the image density the same as the man, it's a much larger image because there are a lot more pixels to display. That accounts for the discrepancy. When I drag this over here, what I'm doing is I'm saying display this image at the same image density as the male's image. And because this image has many more pixels, it has a tendency to grow or expand. Now you'll notice when I combine images, this is my layers palette. Here's the layers palette. It's usually found over here somewhere. You can drag it out. It works just like the layers that we would see in Illustrator or InDesign. You'll notice that the background image is locked. To unlock that, you double click the lock icon, click OK, and now that allows you to move it around and change the stacking order. Female's image on top, we can't see the male image. It's obscuring it because it's opaque. But we can change the blend modes to determine how those images interact with one another. Or we can keep it normal and we can alter the opacity. And that's all I want to do for now, just so I can see both images simultaneously. So I've got an opacity of around 50%. The next thing that I want to do is reduce the size. Keep in mind, it's always best practice to reduce the size of a photograph rather than try to scale a photograph up. Scaling up actually drops the resolution. Scaling down concentrates the density of information. So I want to scale this down, and I'm going to select layer 1, and I'm going to use Edit Free Transform. The Free Transform function puts scaling handles around the lady's image. And this works just like in any other program. You can grab these things and scale them down. Command Z to undo. You can move towards the corner and you can rotate. Command Z. All I want to do for the time being is scale down, but I'm going to use the Shift key to keep her features proportional. And now I'm going to move it up. And I'm going to keep scaling until I feel the size of her eyes are an appropriate match with the male. So you can see the two of them are getting very close. Right now there's a Snap to feature that's active, and I'm going to try and turn that off. Under View, Snap, I'm going to switch that off. It just allows more fluid movement. Okay. Now you'll notice that there's a discrepancy in the axis of the eyes. So I'm going to rotate her image so that the eyes are parallel. And you can notice as I get closer in terms of scale and axis that the eyes start to line up. As the axes of the features begin to line up, you can actually see the product, the multiplication of the two images reinforcing one another at that point. I'm going to double click my transformation to commit to the changes I've made. And it applies those transformations. I'm now going to increase the opacity back to 100%. There's the female's image, rotated and scaled to match the dimensions of the man's face. We're now going to apply the masking technique, and we'll take a look at the masking technique in the next section. Thank you.